Okay, magic makers, I'm going to do something a little bit different today. I am going to read you a case study. That's what the words I'm using for case study. And I'm not going to just pick one client. I'm basically I was reading this post, and I read these posts regularly on social media, and it breaks my heart every time I read these posts. And I wanted to share with you, as if you were, these are the types of clients who come to me. And if you were a client coming to me, what would I say? What would the steps be that I would take? And so, you know, this is uh, a Reader's Digest version of what I hear, what I see on social media posts. And it says, suggestions for weight loss, please. Is there anyone who's been on a successful weight loss program? I have tried everything since reaching my 40s and nothing has worked. Anyone feel that? Right? I don't want to do injections. And, they're like, I feel like I'm climbing an uphill battle every single day. My emotions are all over the place. I know I'm supposed to love my body, but at this point, I'm finding it really hard to love my body. I'm doing all the right things. And I'm not trying to have a six pack. I am just trying to feel like my old self. I'm working out, but sometimes my energy is like, not today. I'm doing all the right things. I'm envious of all the posts I see of people who are like, just give it time, have patience. And I wish I felt the same. Ah, all right. Does anyone feel that struggle? Does anyone feel that pain? Those are the types of women who come to me regularly, and they're like, what do I do? And I feel that because that was me. I been one, this is my profession. So I'm like, I should have seen this coming, but I didn't. Um, I put on 30 pounds over 30 years, over 30 years, 30 pounds over 3 years. And I was like, what the hell is going on here? And it's really easy to get so caught up in the emotions, right? Caught up in the, I need to get this off my body as quickly as possible. I feel that because we've been indoctrinated in the 12 weeks to this, 6 weeks to that. And sadly, that's not how it works. Recently, one of my clients, she came to me, she's like, Kim, like, what the hell? She's like, I put on 7 pounds in the last year. Like, what's happening? And I'm like, okay, like, let's not panic, right? The first thing you do is panic, because it comes on so subtly that you're like, what the hell? How did this happen? And sometimes you have to like find that third party who can, tell us to chill the hell out. I know I need someone to tell me to chill the hell out, because it's really like, let's get this off as quickly as possible. So as these people come to me, as I read these posts, this is the thought process that I go through. And this is the thought process I go through when I'm starting to work with a client. So the first place is that we have to get clear on what it is that you want, so that you're not chasing shiny objects. So you're not like, I'm going to go keto, I'm going to go carnivore, I'm going to go whatever it is, the latest shiny diet that one of your friends at a party told you that they were on. And the question I always ask, the first question I ask everyone, and I'm sure my clients like, Kim, for the love of God, stop asking. Are you chasing weight loss, that number on the scale? Or are you chasing body composition change? And for most people, you're chasing body composition change. No one is going to walk up to you and be like, hey, girl, you look like you are stunning 150 pounds. I have never, no one's ever said that to me. Only dudes talk in like weight. Most women don't talk in weight. If you're that woman who's like, oh, you look like a stunning 170, I want to know this friend. Most of us are looking at our body composition. We're looking in the mirror and we're like, my butt, my tummy, my shoulders, my this, my that, my legs. So that's the first question. Are you chasing the number on the scale, or are you chasing body composition? And then second, are you willing to wait? Right? Because believe it or not, the weight will come off, but it takes patience. There was a article that I was reading earlier this year, and this woman has been working at it for 2 years. 2 years. And I think if I said to someone, it's going to take you 2 years, they would hang up the phone on me, right? They would ghost me in the DMs. But for most people, it comes down to doing an audit of what you're already doing. And that's where I start. I start with you. what are you eating? And I know someone just rolled their eyes like, oh yeah, I can. Like, but here's the reason why I asked this, because when it comes to body composition change, 80% of it is nutrition. I know you want me to tell you that it is, follow this diet and you're going to live your life to its fullest. But how many of us have followed a diet and then we got sick of it, right? Or we followed a diet and it no longer works because our bodies have changed. A recent client has been following a diet for like 20 years and she's like, my body just isn't the same anymore. It isn't. Our bodies shift and adjust. Primarily, yeah, sure. Hormones are one piece of the puzzle, but activity level, sleep, stress, those are things that we don't factor in. You're like, but I'm eating really well and I'm going to the gym. But I'm like, do you get 6 or 7 hours of sleep every night? Or are you more like 5 or 4? Right? What's your stress level? Are you always just walking around like a stress ball? Because that factors in to how well you're eating, how many times a week you go to the gym. That factors in. And so many of us are willing to just put that on the shelf. Like, oh, stress, that's just my life. Like, oh, yeah, I don't really sleep well. I've never been a good sleeper. And you just brush it off like, oh, never been a good sleeper. But it's like, do you want to be a good sleeper? Or you're just so frustrated that sleep just doesn't come for you that you're like, fuck it. And I get, and that's okay. So the first step we do an audit. And so I want to understand what's going on with you, because how can I give you advice if I just jump in and say, here's this blueprint and I know shit about you. So the first step is that many of you are doing things. I would say I would give everyone here a B minus, everyone here a B minus. But what I see when I do my audit, let's start with food. When I first do the audit, I see that people they're not eating much, but it's very calorie rich. So the amount of food that you're eating, like the number of like food pieces that you put in your mouth aren't that much, but they're very high calorie, like coffee drinks, the 5 million things that you put in your coffee. I had a client who, like, I don't know if this is still a thing. The whole bulletproof coffee. I don't know if that's still such a big thing, but she would do the bulletproof coffee. So she would put the coconut oil in, the butter, and creamer. That's a lot. That's a lot of calories in one drink. So there's that. Like, I'm not eating a lot. I'm intermittent fasting. But in that coffee drink, there's a lot of stuff in that coffee drink. I'm having salad for lunch. Great. But sometimes I look at the salad and it's got bacon bits in it. It's got cheeses. It's got fried protein. It's got a ton of berries and it's got a high calorie dressing on it. So that could be, a 1,000 calorie salad. Proteinish bars, one of my, like, so like, I'm just having a protein bar. Like, I am not going to bash one or two bars, but there's probably like 90% of the bars out there are literally a glorified healthy candy bar, right? They're a glorified healthy candy bar and they're, marketed as protein bars when they're like 6 grams of protein, like 6 grams. Seriously, dude, chicken has like 30. Like, call me when you have a 30 protein bar. Wine, 1 or 2 glasses of wine to unwind from the day. And then you're like, oh, but for dinner, I have something like very vegan or a vegetarian for dinner. And so a lot of these things, while they are very low volume foods, they have a lot of calories. Or I have clients who are eating these like mini meals because of 5 to 6 mini meals, because, I grew up in that era that you ate 5 to 6 mini meals to stoke your metabolism. So you might be eating more calories than you're actually burning. And, when it comes to food, many of us eat out of habit. Like, this is what we've been doing. I mentioned earlier about my client who's like, she put on those 7 pounds. She's like, oh my God, when I look at her food log, it's not that she was eating bad, but when we added up the calories, they were exceeding what she was actually doing. And so we had to like start looking at what she was doing and see where we could, move on to step 2, like make some adjustments and make some tweaks. But many of you are eating out of habit. Like, you've always eaten this way, but maybe you're exercise volume has gone down. Maybe you're not sleeping as much. Maybe it is the hormones. Maybe it is the stress. Maybe you're eating more out of convenience because you've taken on more responsibilities at work, or maybe your kids are in their season of varying in sports or dance or whatever it is that they may be doing, or maybe you're taking on caring for a aging parent or some other relative. Maybe you just don't have the desire to cook anymore. As summer approaches, I know many, yeah, I get it. Like, it's hot. I want to cook. Maybe you don't have air conditioning and cooking is just not your thing. Or maybe you've just never been a good cook and you're just sick of what you eat. So you do eat a lot of, more convenience foods. Also, as I go through this audit with clients, I ask them, like, what is your capacity? Like, what are you currently doing in your life? What can be eliminated? What could be added? And, where are you in your life? I talk a lot about seasons, and I got to redo the podcast on seasons, but I talk a lot about seasons in your life. Are you in your busy season? So taking on a lot of stuff isn't going to be a good idea, because I know for my A++ people out there that if I gave you a list of 500 things to do, and if you didn't get through all 500, you sucked, right? If you got through 400, you were like, I'm shit. I'm like, I should have been able to get to 500, and you should all over yourself. And then during this audit, I ask, right, do you have the courage to do something different? I've had clients who they come to me and they're doing fabulous. But one of the things is that we have to make in the audit phase, adjustment phase, we got to, adjust how they're eating or adjust how they're working out. And it's so ingrained and entrenched in them that it is their identity. It's really hard for them. And, as I mentioned, that, this isn't a like 6 weeks to that. The woman I talked about that did the 2-year experiment, it took her about 6 months just to like hit the phase of maintenance where she wasn't gaining any weight and she wasn't losing weight. She was just hanging tough. And for a lot of people in 6 months, you'd be like, why didn't I lose 4 million pounds? Well, let me just be very clear here. If you are chasing weight loss, the days of losing 1 to 2 pounds a week, they're gone. If you're listening to me and you're over 40, you have been on at least 20 diets and your body is hip to everything you throw at it. So now we kind of have to approach it like a wild animal, kind of trying to tame this crazy ass bear that got onto our property and coax it into the cage. And so that means we got to go a little bit slower. And slower than you probably want to go. But this is what I know. If you're with me, you're listening this far into it. If you're sick of dieting, you're sick of always trying to figure out what the rules are. You're sick of having these like really good weeks and then having these really shitty weeks. You're sick of a weekend throws you off your game. You're sick of a social event throws you off your game. Keep listening, right? Because clearly you're listening because you don't want that life anymore. And that was me. Like that was my life. When I was competing, I was rock solid from January until the end of June. It's rock solid. Then my last show, I would lose my shit from pretty much July, August, and then pull it together again in September. So for 60 days, I was like a drunken sailor on shore leave. It was like, if it wasn't nailed down, it was going in my mouth. My workouts, but it was because I was so rigid. I held on so tight to my protocols for 6 months that I didn't give myself any wiggle room. And it took me a long time to realize you need the wiggle room. So I had like, this year I've been working a lot on my courage to change how I work out, my courage to change how I eat my food. And it's a challenge to unwind the habits that has taken me years to ingrain in myself. And so I want you to give yourself that grace. I want you to give yourself that patience, because sometimes it doesn't happen overnight. I think about those back in the 90s, those weight loss shows, right? That it was like The Biggest Loser, and they would come to your house and they would like throw all your crap food out, and like people would just be literally like crying because overnight I'm expected to go from 0 to 60. And if that's not you, that's okay. Over the years, I've been doing this, gosh, almost 20 years. And the one thing I have learned is that I need to meet you where you are. Right? I can't just throw out these dictations, do this or die, because it never works. It works for a little bit, and then it doesn't. You just get overwhelmed. So what I've been learning to do over the last probably 5 years working with clients is like, I want to meet you where you are. So by doing this audit approach, I see what's going on, and I'm going to give you one or two things to do and see how you handle them. Right? See if it throws you off your game. See if it just literally blows up your world. Because then I could pull it back and be like, all right, we're not ready for that just yet. Last year I started looking for a new nutrition coach. And I was like, I need to shake things up. And I know that me doing it on my own I'm not going to think in a different way. I need to expand my thinking. And so the first coach I hired, she gave me this like cleanse phase. And so the first thing was the cleanse. I was like, oh fuck, cleanse. No. Like that was like a hard no. And then as I read through it, there were too many rules, right? It would be for me going from what I do to like stopping on a dime and changing direction. And I don't do that anymore. Back in the day, I used to do that. Like, oh, give me the hard shit, give me the hard stuff. And I'm like, I know I need to ease myself into the water. And so, and I said to her, I was like, she gave it to me on a Friday and she was like, take the weekend, read everything. We'll talk on Monday. And she did. And I was like, no fucking way. No fucking way. Like, I can't, like, this is too much. Oh, like, this is too much of how I was, and I don't want to ever go back there. And she was like, okay, all right, let's adjust and let's do it this way. And so that's that's the true meaning of like where you have to meet your client. And she was like, I wasn't sure if you were 50-50. Like you could have been like, yeah, I'm in, or you could have been like, hell no. And so she's like, I didn't know where you were gonna land. And I was a hell no. So for many people, it's about how you want to adjust, So for losing weight, it doesn't have to be this. For most people, it's not a major overhaul, right? Like I mentioned, most people, they come to me and it's about doing simple adjustments. So let's talk about the person who is eating mostly, like I said, small amounts of food, but they're very high calorie. So the first thing, let's talk about the coffee drink. So the first thing I would adjust is like, hey, I want you to look at your food, right? Let's just look at your food. What is 1 to 2 things that you're like, this can't come out? Like if you are married to that mocha loca laca, I'm not going to take away your mocha loca laca, right? I'm not going to take that away. And as I'm talking to you now, I'm drinking a cup of coffee. Like I am always going to have coffee with cream in it. Boom, that's it. I don't take that away from me. That gives me joy. I'm not going to take that away from you. So we're going to like ask, like, as we do our adjustments, we're going to ask what brings you joy. If your coffee drink doesn't bring you joy, it's just something that you've always drank and you are like, oh, I could give it a shot to have just coffee with cream, right? Without all the accoutrements in it, then we'll do that. If you love that salad, great. Well, look at your salad and be like, are there certain pieces of that salad that we can take apart? I'm all about having what I call preemptive treats, right? There's these preemptive things that we put into our nutrition that keeps us from losing our shit. For me, olives and feta in my salad. Those they keep me from losing my stuff. Like they keep me from having the cravings. Those are really good for me. I have other clients who they have like a little chocolate every day, right? So it's like these little things, they're not huge, but these little things that keep you on course, but still help you to find joy. And so as we talked about, it's just little tweaks. And so for many people who are like, oh, Kim, I don't want to track my food, you know what? Here's why as a coach, I have you do that, right? So ideally, if you don't want to track every morsel that gets into your mouth, you're not going to do it for the rest of your natural born life. But it's kind of like the best way to describe it. Have you ever gone to get a mortgage, right? And so you go to get a mortgage and They're like, okay, show me your financial background, right? That's show me your calories. And if I go into a bank and I'm like, girl, you don't need to see my finances. I just want $1 million house. So just what you got, show me the paperwork and I'll sign on the dotted line. That doesn't work, right? The banker would be in a nice way, be like, girl, get the hell out of my office. So that's what the food log does. Now, if you're someone who's like, oh, I don't check a food, fine. But give me something. So I always ask you, all right, I want you to track your protein, just food, protein. What did you have for protein? Track that. Or track your vegetables, right? So I'm going to ask you to track something because one of the two biggest things that I see when we are making these adjustment is what is protein and what is your vegetables? Because many women over 40, you're low in protein and you're low in fruits and vegetables, right? And so that is going to be a huge game changer for many of you just by focusing on those two things, right? No one ever got fat eating too much protein. No one ever be like, oh, I lost my shit eating too much chicken, right? And then the second thing is like, no one ever said, oh, I lost my shit eating too much broccoli, right? That really never happened. And the last thing is you need to be action oriented, right? Instead of wanting to know the whole list, like give me all 500 things to do, it's like, all right, based on what I see in your audit, here are the 1 to 2 adjustments we're going to make right now. Make those 1 to 2 adjustments. And when you nail those 1 to 2 adjustments, then we're taking on the next step. The best way I can describe it is like math, right? We all had to learn 1 + 1 = 2. Right? We had to learn that 1 + 1 = 2. And then we learned, 2 times 2 is 4. And we learned, 4 divided by 2 is 2. But we had to learn our like primary math level before we could get complicated and do geometry and algebra and all the other advanced maths. And so many of you are like, screw the basics. I want to be out here in advanced trig. And it's like, somewhere along the way, you lost your basics, right? And the best way I could describe this is simplicity scales, fancy fails. So what that means is I'm always going to be looking at your basics, right? What are the big rocks? What are the rocks that I know that are going to actually move the dial and keep you going regardless of hormones, regardless of age, right? And then from there, we could get fancy. But until you master the basics, we're not going to get fancy, right? We're going to work at your own, we're going to work at your own pace because ideally when you work with me, I don't want you to ever diet anymore. I want you to be able to like, all right, what are my basics, right? It's like, am I having the water? Am I sleeping? What's going on with my stress? Am I having self-care days where I'm having actual rest days? What am I doing in that capacity before I start thinking gotta go harder at the gym, before I think I gotta eat less, right? I'm gonna be looking at other areas in my life to say like, am I nailing the basics? And that's one of the things that I'll be working on in my 7 days to sail through summer challenge, is that helping you understand what the basics are and why they matter, right? Because so many of you are like, why do I care? I want you to know why you care and how you can put it into action. Because when I don't put things into action, it's really easy for me to have this like laundry list of stuff like on my phone or in my brain. And I'm like, oh yeah, I should do that. Oh yeah, I should be doing that. But I want you to be like, why am I not doing that? Why am I not taking action? Right. And it's like part of it is also, I'd say 80% of your changes are going to happen with food, right? 80% food. And then you have that 20% of working out. And for working out, it's really about, am I lifting weights? And the reason why, so many fitness pros are like weightlifting is because there's so many ancillary benefits that come out of lifting weights. Sure, you look good. Great. Fabuloso. Right. But it's great for us in acts of daily living. Do you want to be that 80-year-old woman who can still, go out and be in the garden and lift the mulch? and lift the potting soil and, dig out roots in a tree, dig out roots from a tree or a weed or whatever the hell you garden. Do you want to be that little old lady that can get off the toilet and climb upstairs? Because I see it, I share this all the time. My parents live in Florida. I see what's coming for you if you aren't being active. And so I don't want you to be that person who's like, oh, back in the day, I used to be able to blah, blah, blah. And now you're like, you can't do any of that. Also, it helps with that metabolic flexibility. So many people are like, oh, my metabolism slowed. No, your metabolism didn't slow down. Is that we changed the activity level, we changed our food level. So now it's like we need to work on getting our metabolism back to being flexible so that it burns both carbs and fats. And that comes from strength training, which also helps regulate blood sugar. So many people, if you look at your blood work, you have increased cholesterol, increased triglycerides, and all of that comes from working out. And if you are not lifting weights, and now, many people are like, well, what's heavy? Heavy is relative to everybody. What is a heavy bicep curl for me might not be a heavy bicep curl for you, or it might be like, oh, Lord, you lift that. But it's all relative. So when I say heavy, or when you hear heavy, here, the last 2 to 3 reps should feel challenging but doable, right? So if I'm doing a bicep curl, I should be able to, the last 2 reps, go all the way up to my shoulder and go all the way down, fully extend that elbow, and then come all the way back up. That's the range of motion I'm looking for. And so the last 2 to 3, if they're like, am I going to get that weight up to my shoulder? Yeah, I did it. I got that, right? That's what we're looking for. And that right, that weight size varies. Like, could vary on, like, how long you've been doing this. Also varies, like, did I get enough sleep last night? So that's where you kind of have to, like, look at yourself and ask, where am I? So, getting, landing the plane here, getting back to when I read those posts, those are the 3 things I would say to, this anonymous member in this Facebook group, is that I would be like, first, get clear about what are you looking for. Be comfortable that it's not going to happen in 12 weeks. Do an audit. Like, what are you eating? How are you working out? Ask yourself, what season are you in? What capacity do you have right now to make any changes? And even if it's one change, be okay with it. I remember I was working with a business coach years ago, and she just said, find your pace and make peace with it, right? Because all of us want to go fast. But if I'm in a season that I can't go fast, make peace with where I am. Some of you might have, I have a client who's coming back from a major injury, and, she's not able to do all the things she used to do. And, and she's just kind of looking at the ghost of her former self. Let's call her Carol. And Carol is looking back, and she's just like, oh, I used to, 6 months ago before this injury, I used to be able to do A, B, and C, and now I can't do A, B, and C, and I'm just so frustrated. I'm so behind. No, girlfriend, you're not behind. You had a major fucking injury, and we're coming back from that. So 2 steps up that you made a comeback from that injury. Not many people can. Now you are where you are. You're at this pace. Let's make peace with it, because guess what? Where are we going to be 6 months from now? It's going to be hopefully light years from where you were 6 months ago. And so just kind of, find your path and just tell yourself, this is where I am right now. And it's okay. Like, this is what my capacity is right now. And I'm okay with it, because it's better than the capacity I was 6 months ago when I was laid up with this injury. Have the courage to do something different. And I know, trust me, I had to shift the way I ate. And it probably took me about a good 6 weeks to just, like, stop just waking up and just doing what I normally did by habit. Right. And, I love habits. I had to break that habit and start doing a different habit. And that was challenging. I had to have the courage to be like, all right, this is something different. I'm giving it a try. I need to do something different, because what I'm doing right now isn't working. And that's what I always had to come back to. Kim, what you're doing right now isn't working. So why are you going to shit on this thing if you haven't given it a try, because right now where I am isn't where I want to be. And then make the adjustment. And it's going to be make 1 to 2 adjustments, because if I make 500 adjustments, it's hard for me to know which one worked. So make 1 to 2 adjustments and give it like a month. Test it. I know going slow, painful, right? I have 0 patience. And trust me, I've been working on a project for 20 weeks. I can't believe it's been almost 20 weeks. I'm working on this bleeping project, but have the courage to do something, have the courage to see it through. Right. And be clear, going back, being clear, what is your objective and what are you looking for? Right. What is that clear objective? Uh, change on the scale, change in your body composition, right. And you're not going to go from like, if I have belly fat to having 6-pack, like in a month, it's just not going to happen. Sorry. But it's like, could I lose an inch? Could I lose a half an inch? Right. So that you can make the adjustment and then implement. I see so many of you like, grabbing all of the articles and doing all the things and posting all in the groups, but you're not implementing. And so I have to implement and then wait, audit, adjust, implement again. And it's just this repetitive cycle until I get to my results. And as I do that, I'm now building my own strategy. And I'm like, okay, I did this, that worked. Check. I did that. That didn't work. Throw it out. But at least I know I did it. And just that's how you build your process. And so if you're looking for how to build your process, looking for someone to hold you accountable, do me a favor. That 7 days to sail through summer is kicking off later next month. And so I want you to hop in and be able to follow along. So if you're looking for a change, if you're that person who's written that post umpteen times on social media, or your friends can't hear you talk about it anymore, I want you to join me for the 7 days to sail through summer. And if you would like to be a case study for this and have me walk you through this 3-step process, do me a favor, hit me up, shoot me an email, hello@kimbarnesjefferson.com, and I would be more than happy to assist you in that. All right, magic makers, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon. And hopefully I will see you in the 7 days to sail through summer.